During the night, I woke up every 5 minutes and said, Brent, don't be grumpy. So I'm going to try not to be grumpy. I'm going to have a conversation, however, and throughout the conversation I'm going to refer back to some of the presentations this morning and some of the presentations yesterday. The last 2.5 days, people have referred to a number of elephants in this room. I hope they weren't talking about individuals. Funding is another one of those elephants, and it's a big elephant. There are some huge challenges to do with funding for tertiary education, but I'm going to concentrate a lot on TVET. Is the funding not enough, or are we not using the funding in the best way? Are we not directing the funding to where it makes the biggest or has the biggest impact? There are challenges. And I liked the fact that Mr. Kandumi this morning had a wonderful slide about equity, but he also had another slide about the need to align the training year with the fiscal year. This week, WhatsApp group for APTVTIN has been a buzz, because this week training providers are signing their training agreements for the first intake for 2023. This week, end of July. What's been happening to the trainees since the middle of January? Colleagues, we've got to do better, because we're putting the Honourable Minister at risk. We are supposed to be dealing with youth unemployment, with skills upliftment, and we can't get the funding to where it's making a difference. The revised TVET policy, objective number 5, it's got a number of key words in objective 5. Equitable, fair, standardised. Mr. Kandumi's slide showed that to be equitable, you must act in an unequal way. To achieve equity, you must be unequal. He showed that quite clearly on the slide. And I think we're dealing with that. Fairness, standardised. Now, since the revised TVET policy came out, APTVTIN has committed itself to work with the Ministry to make sure that the TVET policy becomes a reality. We spent a lot of time conceptualising what we see as a standardised financing framework, which is fair and which is equitable. We've shared that with our colleagues in the NTA. We shared it with the Deputy Executive Director within the Ministry. We've got a lot of good ideas. At the same time, we were working on proposals for a fair and equitable standardised financing framework for TVET. We knew that it would take some time and that there were some interim issues to deal with. The key priority grant funding and the per unit cost. The per unit cost for TVET has not changed in 5 years. But for people who are doing commercial cookery, the cost of the raw materials has grown exponentially. TVET is expensive, it's getting more expensive, but we're not putting the money in where it is needed, where it's going to have an impact. We must do better. There are major issues to do with industrial attachments, particularly in terms of funding industrial attachments, funding the monitoring, the structuring, the supporting roles, the evaluation roles, which Dr. Blom mentioned this morning. But she also mentioned, and maybe my hearing went funny, she also said industrial attachments are not part of work integrated learning. Hey, if industrial attachments are structured, are purposeful, and are well implemented, surely that is learning for work, at work, through work, if we include production unit activities. How has industrial attachment been dropped from will? It's a key component. We must give our trainees and TVET exposure to the world of work, meaningful exposure. And that is going to cost money. We have calculated that if we use the same money spent or been given to apprentices for students who are doing work industrial attachments, it's going to cost the Minister 140 million Namibian dollars a year. We don't have that money, but we must get it from somewhere if we are to get industrial attachments working. I acknowledge, and I'm probably going to lose my place on the board of APTVTIN, I acknowledge the fact that some providers are too dependent on the key priority grant funding that we gain through the training authority. We're too dependent on. And I took note of Mendelma's comment that in fact training providers must provide surety that they've got 3 years of funding. How do you do that when people in Namibia have not got the money to pay for training, for TVET, which is expensive? Unemployment. I was wondering whether youth and graduate unemployment, youth unemployment in particular, is that another elephant or is it a dragon? Is it a fire-breathing dragon? Because there is the real risk. 50% youth unemployment, probably in excess of 300,000 individuals. Each person unemployed represents a person in need, a community in need, a family in need. At an engagement last year, at the end of last year, the Honourable Minister made a comment, and I'm going to paraphrase. She said, training providers must manage today, but they must plan and prepare for the future. The future training needs, the future training requirements. That night, immediately after the Honourable Minister's statement, I then sat down in my office. The next day I presented the challenge to my colleague directors and to the members of ATVET and said, what are you doing for tomorrow? How are you preparing your training centre for tomorrow? An outcome of that is that in recent weeks, APTVTIN has actually been starting to put its attention to what TVET system would suit Namibia. Because at the moment, we've got a South African system which is merged with the German system. It is not Namibian. The system, frankly, is outdated. It is 1980s, not 2030. It's not responsive to changing needs. It's not meeting the needs of the masses. And one of the things which has caught my attention these last 2.5 days, I've heard a number of key strategies, key proposals, key things which are working, but they are only addressed to meeting the needs of a few, not the masses. And it reminded me of the Pareto rule, Why is it that we spend 80% of our resource on 20% of things which really matter? Dr. Kloppers thankfully reminded the non-TVET people in this room yesterday, the future of the Namibian youth rests with TVET. The future of the Namibian nation depends on the products and the productivity from TVET, not from higher education. And yet, look at the figures that Mr. Kanduni presented this morning. Where is the money going? The money is going into undergraduate programs in which most of those graduates are not going to be employed. TVET gives people the employable skills. It also gives them the skills which give them the side hustle. And that they can start doing things. Vision 2030 said that Namibia would be an industrialised nation. Does the word industrialised today mean the same as it did when Vision 2030 was crafted? Vision 2030 also said that agriculture would be modernised. What does modernised now mean compared to the time in which Vision 2030 was crafted? Vision 2030 said that manufacturing and services would be contributing 80% of GDP. Huh? What manufacturing do we have? What real manufacturing do we have? Earlier in this conference, in this engagement, we were told to be wary of the resource curse. That we are spending a lot of time bringing hydrogen, petroleum, etc., which is not going to generate that many sustainable jobs. The masses need core skills. It led to the question, what amount of skills development is enough to enable income generation? Why are we talking about employment? Maybe we should be focusing on income generation, because if the community, if the family is generating an income, they spend it, which then has a multiplier effect throughout the economy. If I come back to the resource curse, have we really sat down and looked at what are the niche markets in manufacturing? We cannot realise economies of scale to be internationally competitive in this nation. It's not going to happen. And the big nations in the Northern Hemisphere are not going to let Namibia compete against their workforce. So what are the things that we could be doing which nobody else wants to do or is doing? Sometimes big production units, automotive, for example, machine tools. Sometimes the manufacturers move on and they don't develop the parts which are needed to fix the cars, to fix the machines. And so they stop producing those parts. But maybe if Namibia sort of said, let's start filling that gap, let's start filling the global market so that we can fix cars and we can fix machines. Has Namibia thought of becoming the SADC recycling centre for solar panels? To get the aluminium out of the solar panels, to get the minerals, the rare earth materials out of the solar panels. Have we, in Namibia, in TVET, have we really looked at how can we drive the circular economy within SADC. Yesterday we heard from our NCRST colleagues that they've been working with the public VTCs. I don't know why they didn't include the others, because the others represent the greater bulk of trainings. But they are working to come up with design concept things. The circular economy is that when you design a product, a new product, you should be designing something which can be reused and reused as something else, as something else, as something else. That it doesn't, when it gets past its use by date, it doesn't just fall into, cooker. The circular economy. What and who, or for whom, are we training?